Hugh Hewitt in Studio West, joined by former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Good morning, Governor. How are you?
Great, Hugh. How are you?
Good. Jim Banks just got the endorsement on this show by J.D. Vance, new senator from Ohio. Does that surprise you? Are you happy to see Republicans acting to clear fields in easy states?
Yeah, no, look, Jim Banks is an outstanding member of Congress. Jim and I have been friends for a number of years. When he was chairing the Republican Study Committee, he invited me a number of times to come and speak to the group. And I think Jim is an outstanding candidate, and I'm glad that Republicans are working with each other to try to win again. You know, we got to stop losing,
Yeah.
and I think it's a good way to do it.
The NRSC, Steve Daines, came out minutes later and said the NRSC is endorsing Jim Banks. That is a repudiation of the don't play in primary rules. What do you make about that, Chris Christie?
I like it, and I had that. I repudiated that rule when I was chairman of the Republican Governors Association. If I felt like there was someone who we needed to help in a primary to give us the best chance to win a governorship, that's what we did. And when they did it again, Doug Ducey did it again this year, playing in primaries, most particularly in defending Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia, and we see how that turned out. So we need to be doing things. We need to be decisive. Leaders are supposed to lead, Hugh, and that means sometimes making difficult, uncomfortable decisions in politics. But we got to start winning again. We cannot allow the Democratic Party to be controlling everything in this country other than a narrow majority in the House and a one-seat majority among the nation's governors.
Now, J.D. Vance also endorsed Donald Trump for the 2024 nomination on my program this morning. Your reaction to that, Governor Christie?
Well, look, I think that's a mistake, and I think it's a mistake largely because Donald Trump has shown a track record since 2016 of doing nothing but losing politically. And so I think it's contrary to what J.D. was doing regarding Jim Banks. But look, we also know there's a tradition in politics among some of paying off debt. And this must be paying a debt back to Donald Trump for having endorsed J.D. Vance, because it makes no sense otherwise politically.
No, I spent some of the time at the RNC winter meeting talking to the national committeeman from New Jersey about you. I told him to give you a hard time when I saw him. He was a Harmeet Dillon guy. What do you make of the situation at the RNC where Rana, who I endorsed, won 70% on the first ballot? The national news media tried to turn that into a story. It wasn't a story.
Oh, look, I think it's always interesting for the national media to focus on 168 Republicans. I don't think it has any significance one way or the other, quite frankly, Hugh. And I don't think that the National Committee chairmanship has a whole lot of significance when you don't have a president. And so she's not the one who's going to be making the predominant number of decisions regarding what we do in this country politically. And so I think it was a story really about not much of anything.
The key thing that the RNC does is set up a debate schedule, which I believe is going to begin in July in Milwaukee. What do you think of the timing of that?
I think that's fine. I would have even liked earlier because I think the more the American people can hear from the potential candidates for president, the better off they're going to be, the more robust the debate should be. It should be substantive. We should know what these candidates know and don't know, what they stand for, and what they oppose. I thought the debates in 2016 fell a little bit short in that regard, to say the least. And I'm hoping that debates in 2024 will be ones where the candidates on that stage are challenged on their views and on what they know and what they stand for.
Well, if I'm on the stage asking questions, I'm going to ask whether or not we sink Chinese ships that are sailing for Taiwan. Yesterday, Mike Minahan, a general of the Air Force who runs the Air Force command associated with moving troops and equipment, said, we're going to be in war in 2025. What do you make about that, Governor Christie? And if you were the president, would you order the torpedoes fired at Chinese ships headed towards Taiwan?
Well, I'd like to do a lot more before that to try to prevent that from happening, Hugh. And I think we have to be much more robust. I think Ukraine is teaching us the lesson of having not given everything that a country needed to defend itself. That ability prevents war much more than what you do afterwards once the war starts. And so I'd like to be much more aggressive and would be much more aggressive there. And also in the decoupling of our economic interests from the Chinese as well. We need to be able to depend on American manufacturing, American production for the things that are vital to us. If we didn't learn that from the COVID experience, we really learned nothing. And finally, the Chinese need us a lot more than we need them. Their problems are much graver than ours are in this country, and we should not be trying to help them along when they're being belligerent in the South China Sea and in a lot of other places around the world.
Well, Governor, it seems to me Joe Biden is infirm and the vice president is not going to win the spelling bee anytime soon. Isn't this the window that the Chinese want and have waited for a long time?
Except that, yes, in one respect, Hugh, but I also think they're not prepared. He's still not prepared militarily to do what he wants to do. Secondly, he's got a ton of internal problems in that country. You saw it by what he did at the last meeting of the Chinese Communist Party. He's trying to purge himself of anybody who would dissent on anything that he does, but he's got a lot of internal political problems. I think he knows from watching Putin and what's happening to Putin in Russia that he's not ready for this kind of confrontation in Taiwan, even though he looks at Biden and Harris and knows this is the opportunity to get it done, because with a Republican president and vice president in the White House in 2025, it will be a much different story.
Okay, last question, Governor. I know you're not going to announce for president on the show today unless you want to surprise me. Are you going to announce for president today?
No, I'm not. Hugh.
Okay, so
but God love you for trying, Hugh.
Yeah, I know. I'm always going to ask, when do you have to make a decision in order to be competitive and raise money?
I think late spring.
Is that like March?
No, March would be early spring, wouldn't it? I would say April, May is when you have to make a final decision.
And do you have a PAC up and running yet? A super PAC?
My PAC, I still have a PAC open from 2016, Hugh. But I have not started to actively raise money for that PAC and for any effort for 2024 yet. No.
Do you lose your chair on This Week if you run for president?
Yes.
That's a bummer. You're the last Republican on the Sunday shows. I mean, really the last Republican on the Sunday show. Have you noticed that?
I believe me. I acutely feel it every Sunday, not only on the set at ABC, but I feel it acutely as I look at and watch the other shows. And the fact is that there's a dearth of a Republican voice, and I feel an obligation every Sunday to be making that voice heard across the country for the things that we believe in, and to remind people that the truth matters, Hugh. And I try every Sunday to speak the truth on those shows because the American people want that, or are hungry for that more than anything else.
Why has that happened, Governor? Why are there no I mean, that seat that you hold was held by George Will for a while. There are no big name Republicans left. I mean, hardcore Republicans left on Meet the Press or Face the Nation or State of the Union. They're just gone. What happened?
I think it's a twofold problem. One, I don't think those networks want really outspoken, strong Republicans. That's the first problem. And so they put it on Republicans like John Kasich, for instance, on CNN. Secondly, I think that Republicans are reluctant to go on those programs for two reasons. One, because they fear they're not going to be treated fairly. And two, because they look at it and say, how many people that I care about are really watching? My opinion is different. I'm not worried about being treated fairly. I get on and I can debate and defend my principles and our party's principles against anybody sitting in any of those chairs. And secondly, I do think the American people watch. There's almost 4 million people watching ABC every Sunday. That's a significant number of folks who are decision makers who I'm trying to influence, but even more so, a lot more people see it in social media in the week afterwards.
That's true.
And I can tell you the reaction I got to, calling a lot of our candidates losers on Sunday has been overwhelming over the last 2 days.
There are two kinds of Republicans on network television: refugees and missionaries. And I've been a missionary forever on network television. You're a missionary forever, but we're down to you're the last missionary on the old legacy station, and everyone else is a refugee, and they go on there just to hate on people. It's not. Last comment, Chris. You've been around media a long time. This is not a way to expand audience.
No, it's a losing proposition. And I can tell you, when I walk through airports, which I do a lot as I'm traveling around the country, everybody talks to me about watching me on ABC, and when it's a Republican, they say they look at the preview, Hugh, when the show gets teased, and if they don't see me on the roundtable, they turn it off. That should tell network executives that there's a big Republican audience out there that would be willing to watch if they would put some missionaries on the program.
Missionaries, not refugees. Christie, always a pleasure to talk to you, Governor. Remember, when you make news, come here and tell. Just be like JD, Governor. Just be like JD.
I will, Hugh. Remember, spring training starts in 18 days.
Okay, and you know what? And I hope Lindor comes through for you because we still have the best end of that deal thus far.
We'll see this year, Hugh.
All right, take care, Governor. Bye-bye.